You really look at the way in which we can implement AI from a governance perspective, from a risk tolerance perspective, from a cultural perspective within businesses, Navrina. When you're looking at this report, when you're thinking about AI being more hands-off, more pro-growth, is that the right way?
Well, good to see you, Caroline. And today we really commend the White House on launching the AI action plan. I think if you dive a little bit deeper into the AI action plan, there's a key statement and sentiment, which is the bottleneck to harnessing AI's full potential is not necessarily the availability of models or tools and application. It is slow adoption. And central to that is lack of trust. And I think, as you know, that Credo AI has been on this journey to embed that trust in the full AI lifecycle. And I think the AI action plan is really diving deep into it with how do you standardize evaluations? How do you actually bring more transparency to AI so that you can fuel growth? But all that growth has to be grounded in trust. And that's what the action plan is focused on.
Navrina, in pillar one of the document, which is titled Accelerate AI Innovation, something very high up is the commitment to encourage open source and open weight AI. And I thought that was really interesting, the prominence of it within the document. Why is it important that this administration focuses on open source and open weight AI?
Yeah, Ed, great question. I think we've seen historically that open source really contributes to more innovation. And in artificial intelligence, especially with the United States leading, we are finding a lot of great innovation is coming from our open source ecosystem. So the focus in the AI action plan on open source further strengthens the capability for everyone else to build on top of AI innovation at large scale.
There is a really heavy emphasis on deregulation, cutting red tape to facilitate the infrastructure side of this. Does that concern you, that that's the plan, as opposed to, I guess, a codified or framework piece of rulemaking around AI?
So as you know, Credo AI serves some of the largest global 2000 companies in the world. And what we are finding is governance and oversight and control of AI systems is not just tied to regulation. It is really about understanding these AI systems and making sure that you have the right not only standards, but also some guardrails which are in place. So what we are going to see, I think, coming out of this AI action plan, as stated, is a focus on more contextual evaluations, which are paramount for making these systems happen. I would like to see, obviously, this AI action plan stretch a little bit further into standardizing what does good look like for AI, and more to come on that soon.
Navrina, let's just dig into the global perspective you have. And the fact that the context is this is a race. And this is a winner takes all, US versus China. Is that what you're seeing?
Absolutely. What has been really important is this isn't just a policy moment. I really believe this is a moonshot moment for US. And to continue leading in artificial intelligence, US will need to lead with trust. And that's how we are going to unlock the power of this technology. So this is an arms race. United States is leading, and it's going to be critical how we bring our allies and partners together on this journey by grounding them in trust, oversight, and right responsibility is going to be key.
So when we go back to the open source question, that feels in reaction to what happened with DeepSeek and China. And ultimately, is that, do you think, where this sentiment is coming from? And what does that mean for the players here in the United States? Is it all in on Meta's viewpoint?
Caroline, that's a great question. United States has been leading in artificial intelligence, and we will continue to maintain that leadership. The open source focus is a really pivotal one, because if we want to lead, especially with hard sciences in using artificial intelligence, building on each other's work has always been foundational to how open source works. So I don't think this is in reaction, but this is a continued leadership from United States perspective in terms of how we're going to lead in artificial intelligence.